The Voice of Nethermere. Nethermere is the Garden of Eden. George and Letty are Adam and Eve. And the third character, as a commentator, is the voice of nature, portrayed in music by the playing of a cello and a violin. A little guide as to what the cantata is about. It's divided into 3 sections. The first section is a very upbeat celebration of this Garden of Eden, where lovers unite, birds and all creatures sing madrigals, flowers form a pattern with rhythms and crescendos, and instruments perform folk dance music. Welcome to Nethermere. But even at this stage, a small warning appears relating to the vulnerability of this landscape in the words of the last verse of the madrigal. The second section has allowed us an artistic deviation from the original novel, enabling a dramatic sequence. George has strong feelings for Letty, but through his procrastination, he never gets round to taking things further. Truly, George, Letty and Nethermere are meant to be one, and so it has to be the voice of the plants that reveals to George in a dream that this is the path he must pursue quickly. When he wakes up, he goes to Letty with that hope. But alas, it is too late. She has already set her heart on richer gems, whose wealth will feed the joys I'm owed. And in an angry monologue and virtuoso aria, she renounces absolutely everything connected with this world of rural folk with rustic minds who see no further than the plough, to be replaced by a superficial aristocratic upgrade. The third section marks a progressive change of mood. Bursts of exultation give way to ensuing laments of grief and pain, where tears and sorrow flow. Physically and psychologically, the listener must be prepared for the deepest despair as the tone grows darker and darker. George, a broken man now shredded into alcoholism, welcomes death. Letty has gone for good, and the voice of nature, now tarnished, grieves on damage done therein. Rejection is quite obvious when the rude robin says, "Hello, who are you?" The speakers finally transform us to the present day with pertinent topical questions. Is this about climate change or extinction? We're left to work that out for ourselves. Is there any hope for our suffering planet? Hence the word maybe. And the final choral sentence from the last song, where beauty and the blackened pit are backdrop to the toil of men, where hope and hell are timeless knit. If we do not realize this in time, there is to be carnage, forming an abyss of hell, burning into destruction. vividly portrayed by the last chorus. But the very last word or sound comes from a sobbing, passionate, grief-stricken cello outpouring that grief.
This is an allegorical tale of two innocent souls, children of the earth, a sort of modern-day Adam and Eve. George and Letty dwell among the folk of Nethermere, a location described in some ways as a bountiful Garden of Eden, where choruses of birds sing in rich harmony and plants engage in rhythmic movements and patterns, displaying an array of contrasting colours and shapes. In some ways, it is an unpolluted garden, where nature and man are all at one in such tender communion.
I stood watching the shadowy fish slide through the gloom of the mill pond. They were grey descendants of the silvery things that had darted away from the monks in the young days when the valley was lusty. The whole place was gathered in the musings of old age.
As time goes on, we see this mutual trust being broken, both in terms of the damage to the environment through exploitation and greed, and in the gradual deterioration of human trust within a relationship. The Nethermere of the tale is home to a tight community of fundamentally rural folk, before industrial progress comes to dominate. In this story, there are only two human characters, George and Letty, alongside the voice of nature, which plays a pivotal topographical and progressive role, a voice which will speak to George in a powerful dream. Our starting point is in this beautiful garden, where lovers unite and birds sing. Let us rejoice, rejoice, for this is our land of Eden.
Rejoice,
The stepping stones were white in the sun. The water slid sleepily among them. One or two butterflies, indistinguishable against the blue sky, trifled from flower to flower.
The birds fluttered and dashed. The catkins on the hazel loosened their winter rigidity and swung soft tassels.
All through the day sounded long, sweet whistlings from the bushes. Then later, loud, laughing shouts of bird triumph on every hand.
Come chant with me sweet songs in storm, and cheerful birds sing with me glad and flowers all sing for me. With clouds of wind take for me. Rejoice, rejoice, creation shall gift our voices unto heaven lift. Rejoice, rejoice, voices on
It's a palace with ash trunks smooth like a girl's arm, and the elm columns ribbed and bossed and fretted with the steel shafts of beech, all rising up to hold an embroidered care cloth over us.
Every thread vibrates with music, and the little broidered birds sing.
And the hazel bushes fling green spray round us.
And the honeysuckle leans down to pour out scent for us.
This is the land where lovers meet, grasses green and birds that tweet, the garden sweet to dance and sing. The sun shines through Trinity. Rejoice, rejoice, creation's gift, our voices unto heaven lift. Rejoice, rejoice, voices on
The larchwood was afloat with clear lyric green, and some primroses scattered whitely on the edge under the fringing boughs. It was a clear morning, as when the latent life of the world begins to vibrate afresh in the air.
but humankind will not respect this gift of life will soon infect. For greed and pride we must not love, for stewards
The Voice of Nethermere, our Garden of Eden, communicates through the life of its own flora and fauna as it journeys through life's seasons, musically mirroring a sonata form, complete with exposition and motivic development. It glides through each month's movement of vivid contrasts. Nature's orchestra of symphonic ambient harmonies unite with the lustrous colours of a visual artistic tapestry. Welcome to Nethermere.
It was a magnificent morning in early spring. The upper air was woven with the music of the larks, and my whole world thrilled with the conception of summer.
A sallow tree was voiced with the hum of bees, like a sacred bush, uttering its gladness in the thrilling murmur of bees and in warm scent. Birds called and flashed on every hand. They made off exultant with streaming strands of grass or wisps of fleece, plunging into dark spaces of the wood and out again into the blue.
Autumn set in, and the red dahlias, which kept the warm light alive in their bosoms so late in the evening, died in the night. On the second Saturday before Christmas, the world was transformed. Tall, silver and pearl grey trees rose pale against the dim blue sky, like trees in some rare, pale paradise. The whole woodland was as if petrified in marble and silver and snow. The holly leaves and long leaves of the rhododendron were rimmed and spangled with illicit tracery.
Through seasons life evolves, as plants uniting a pattern revolves. stone to enrich a family of creation.
The evening scents began to awake and wander unseen through the still air. An occasional yellow sunbeam would slant through the thick roof of leaves and cling passionately to the orange cluster of the mountain ash berries. The trees were silent, drawing together in sleep. Only a few pink orchids stood palely by the path, looking wistfully out at the ranks of red-purple bugles, whose last flowers, glowing from the top of the bronze column, yearned darkly for the sun.
Initially, George knows his own mind. He would woo and win Letty, but the inertia of his own deep roots in the simple cyclic rhythm of his rural world destroys his love's ambitions. Ironically, it could be from this world of nature that a voice might speak to him if he were attuned to hear it. He knows what he desires, but his lethargy will finally destroy him. Perhaps in an early dream, George might have pondered so much more.
How much the voice of nature speaks, if I am worth its talking to. In dream I catch the whispering wheat and hear the flowers in summer song. The great oak sighs deep and long. I learn of life and love, the wisdom nature speaks to me. But hark, deep mind, and in this sleep now lessons take. How gentle is the forceful voice that urges me to tread new ways, gives order to my tumbled thoughts. Sets heart and life with purpose on that I give. Oh yes, we must be together. For sure, I know our love is deep.
Precious robes, and have the shelter of a coat contrived with yarn a lover spun, so hide us from life's ills. Oh, we have been in love so long, in love for so long. Oh, we have been in love so long, 'tis a love's merry song. We have been in love so long that we have grown new sights to see, from nature's rich and fertile store, with morning's birth sweet beauties pour, and misty rivers, valleys deep, with birdsong shed their midnight sleep, new joy with love awakes. Oh, we have been in love so long, in love for so long. Oh, we have been in love so long, 'tis love's a merry song. We have been in love so long that we are dressed as naked lear, without the wrap of gentle smiles, of warm and whispered tender words. Without that love we are so cold, so open to the storms of time, so battered by all ills. But we have been in love so long, in love until so long. We have been in love so long, that love would be a lifetime song.
I see it all so clearly now, that I must be determined and go to Letty and declare my love to her, that we may be in joy as one, and thus our dreams and hopes fulfill, our paths ahead be common ground.
George thinks that the love between himself and Letty still exists, but she has assumed new dreams, and while she leads George on, she has set out on a different road and is in pursuit of new status and the esteem that it will bring. She becomes much more serious. She tells George,
"You don't want to be like a fixed bit of a mosaic. You want to fuse into life and melt and mix with the rest of the folk, to have some things burned out of you."
She is cold, and in response to George's profession,
But you knew I loved you. You knew well enough.
she held out her hand and showed him the ring. To her, George is past tense, and he must come to learn the truth of his own words.
You never counted me. I was a figure, naught, in the counting all along.
He is a man confused by his own feelings.
I am so trapped within this world of rural folk, of simple souls with rustic minds who see no further than the plough, the harvest sheaves, and routine days. My dreams are more, of other worlds and other ways, of moving out to finer things. Yes, I will taste of my desires. My heart is set on richer gems, on laughter and on bigger barns, of other men with higher goals, whose wealth will feed the joys I'm owed. New pleasures lie beyond, I know, and I will have my dues.
Oh, vanity of vanities.
George becomes increasingly a broken man. He is in fear. He
dreads above all things this slow crumbling away from my foundations, by which I free myself at last. I'm like plenty of folks. I have nothing definite to shape my life to, putting brick upon brick as they come, and if the whole topples down, in the end, it does.
He ends a broken alcoholic. In his walk around the buildings of the farm and into the fields, he shows little interest for those things which had once meant so much to him.
He did not notice the brown haste of partridges. He did not care to share the handful of ripe blackberries. He is described as being like a tree that is falling, going soft and pale and rotten. He watches the men at the stack, but as they gather for tea, he is left apart and obscure, like a condemned man.
Sing dark lament and welcome death, the cistern and the well are dry. Come, mountains fall and travel end. My soul must yield to fiery hell. The seasons all have run their course. My earthly days are done. Sing dark lament and welcome death, the sail is set, dark oceans cool, cry out in anguish wail, the tide of time runs surely on, flows far
The trodden oak leaves and the broken and chavelled bracken uttered their last sharp gasps, pressed into oblivion. The wood was roofed with a wide, young, sobbing sound, and floored with a faint hiss, like the intaking of the last breath.
Letty has eaten the apple of superficiality, abandoned her soul, her innocence has gone. She is lady of the manor, but no earth spirit is present. And George, all his aspirations are dashed. His marriage is doomed. He is a broken man, shredded into alcoholism. This is the story, but it has deeper meanings. As the voice of nature has taken central stage, that trust of mutual communion has been broken. Our land of Eden has vanished into an exploitation of human greed.
I wandered around Nethermere, which had now forgotten me. I was a stranger, an intruder. Among the bushes, a twitter of lively birds exclaimed upon me. A robin sat and asked rudely, "Hello, who are you?" The bracken lay sere under the trees, broken and chavelled by the restless winds of a long winter. Nethermere was no longer a complete and wonderful little world that held us charmed inhabitants. It was a small, insignificant valley, lost in the spaces of the earth.
Letty, George, Nethermere, all tarnished and conveyed to an abyss of hell. And the allegory?
Materialism,
Climate change,
extinction,
where tears of sorrow flow.
Hope? Maybe.
Where beauty and the blackened pit are backdrop
to the toil of men, where hope and hell are timeless yet.
Oh, do not weep.